As evening settled over the affluent Cudahy neighborhood in Milwaukee, Chloe Smith found solace by her window, resting against a sleek, modern railing. With the autumn colors painting her garden, Chloe, at 33, cradled her gently swelling belly. 6 months into her pregnancy, each flutter from within brought a wave of peaceful joy, momentarily eclipsing the strained ties with her family. Closing her eyes, Chloe's mind wandered to an event that still lingered vividly, the grand celebration of her father Daniel's 64th birthday 4 years ago. Held at the opulent Williams family residence, the event was a gathering of Milwaukee's real estate moguls, with champagne flowing abundantly. During the party, Chloe's mother, Samantha, approached her in a glaring Chanel suit, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she commented on Chloe's simple black dress, bought from a department store, a choice that reflected Chloe's values over extravagance. "Yes, I like it," Chloe had responded calmly, despite Samantha's biting remark about her husband's modest income. At that moment, Chloe's sister Melody joined in, her tone laced with scorn. Dressed extravagantly and flaunting a genuine diamond necklace, Melody mocked Chloe's usual absence from family events, preferring her uncomplicated lifestyle. Melody held a high-paying role as sales director at their father's company, a position more about nepotism than merit, marked by grandiose socializing rather than real skill. At the party, Chloe overheard her father proudly tell a client that the future of Williams real estate would be in Melody's hands, praising her supposed prowess. Chloe knew better, aware that Melody's abilities were superficial at best. When she greeted her father, his smile was stiff, and his birthday wishes to her were strained. As the evening wound down, Samantha pulled Chloe aside, her expression grave under her makeup. She bluntly informed Chloe that Melody would inherit the family business, and Chloe's differing life choices meant she had no say in the matter, a stark reminder of her family's disdain for her independence. Years later, upon visiting her parents to share news of her pregnancy, the old wounds were reopened. Samantha's reaction to Chloe's pregnancy was skeptical, doubting her ability to manage financially. Even as Chloe insisted they were prepared, Melody's sarcastic remarks about her simple lifestyle cut deep. However, it was her father's final, harsh directive not to pass the Williams surname to her child that solidified Chloe's resolve to distance herself from their toxic influence. From that day, Chloe minimized contact with her family. She didn't return calls or emails, choosing to shield both herself and her unborn child from further hurt. Despite the lingering sadness, Chloe's resolve was clear: to foster a nurturing environment for her child, free from the shadows of family expectations. Chloe Smith often felt a surge of anxiety when whispers about her family's business reached her ears. On the surface, the company managed by her parents and her sister Melody seemed prosperous. However, industry insiders often murmured about questionable transactions and murky financial practices. Chloe wasn't fully aware of the details yet, but she sensed that these rumors were just the beginning of a deeper, hidden truth. Amidst these troubling thoughts, Chloe was also reminded of her modest wedding, which her mother, Samantha, had criticized for tarnishing the Williams family's image. As Chloe stood by the window, the memories dispersed with the autumn breeze. "Are you feeling okay?" came the caring voice of her husband, Ethan, as he returned from another demanding day. Despite the pressures of his role as CEO of a real estate development company, Ethan always prioritized Chloe's well-being. "Yes, perfect," Chloe replied, smiling at him in her simple dress, free from lavish adornments, her lifestyle a stark contrast to her family's flamboyance. Suddenly, her smartphone rang, breaking the peaceful moment. The caller ID read, "Mom," causing Chloe's expression to tense. After hesitating for a moment, she answered. Samantha's voice, always laced with arrogance, filled the room from the background noise of a high-end spa. "Chloe, I need to talk to you about your baby shower. Next Saturday, I've arranged a celebration at Lissandor at 8 o'clock. Be there," Samantha announced. Lissandor was one of Milwaukee's most prestigious French restaurants, known for its exorbitant prices and impeccable service. Chloe frowned involuntarily. Her family always prioritized appearances and public perception over genuine sentiment. "Mom, It doesn't have to be somewhere that fancy, Chloe tried to interject. Nonsense, Samantha cut in sharply. It's my first grandchild. It should be celebrated properly. Or, do you intend to stick to your usual modest ways? Her mother's words carried the usual disdain for Chloe's choices, her marriage to Ethan, and her lifestyle. Shortly after the call, a message from Melody popped up on Chloe's messenger. Chloe, make sure you come this time. Sadly, you always avoid us. Mom and Dad are really worried about you. Chloe stared at the screen, a bitter smile forming. Melody's words, seemingly caring, were laced with the same condescension that had always undermined Chloe's decision to live independently. Ethan, noticing her discomfort, gently placed his hand on her shoulder. You don't have to go if you don't want to. You don't need to listen to them, he reassured her. No, I'll go, Chloe declared decisively. I'm done running away. It might be time to settle everything. That night, alone in the study, Chloe flipped through an old album containing photos from 12 years ago. Those pictures captured the time when she left a major corporation to forge her own path, a decision her family had mocked. Her mother had declared she would be a disgrace to the family. But young Chloe in those photos looked determined, undeterred by the criticism. That bold choice led her to the greatest happiness of her life, meeting Ethan Smith, who was just starting out as the president of a small real estate company back then. The path hadn't been easy, but it had been hers, and it had brought her here, ready to face her family once more, on her own terms. Chloe was immediately captivated by Ethan's genuine sincerity, his relentless work ethic, and his principle of evaluating people based on their character rather than their appearance or social status. Her family, particularly her parents and sister Melody, did not support her decision to marry him. What's the point of marrying someone from such a small real estate company? Melody had derisively commented. But Chloe was content. She knew what truly mattered to her. Over the years, Ethan's diligent efforts paid off, and he rose to become the CEO of a prominent real estate development company. Despite his professional success, the couple chose to live a simple life, prioritizing true happiness over superficial appearances or wealth. One evening, as Chloe was reminiscing over old photos in the study, Ethan peeked in. Can you come here? I have something to discuss, he said, his voice carrying a tone of resolve. Chloe bookmarked her place in the album and stood up, unaware that the night ahead would bring significant changes to her life. Lissandor Restaurant stood regally in Milwaukee's Gold Coast neighborhood. Its historic Art Deco facade, reminiscent of the 1950s golden era, sparkled under the night sky. Dressed in an elegant navy maternity dress, Chloe stepped out of the taxi and into the cool evening air, her attire merging seamlessly with the upscale ambience of the venue. The clock read 8 o'clock. Take care, the taxi driver remarked, sensing the restaurant might not be to her usual tastes. Chloe offered a faint smile in return. Indeed, such opulence was far from her usual preference, but tonight was about confronting and perhaps resolving her familial disputes. As she pushed open the heavy brass doors, the soft glow from the chandeliers cast delicate shadows across the marble floor. Mason, the floor manager, greeted her with a polished smile. Are you part of the Williams family party? He inquired. Yes, that's us, Chloe confirmed, her voice steady. I'm sorry, but your party has already finished their meal, Mason informed her, his expression turning apologetic. Already? But the reservation was for 8 o'clock, Chloe replied, confusion and a hint of suspicion beginning to swirl within her. Mason looked uncomfortable. No, your reservation was actually for 6. At that moment, Chloe understood. This had been a setup. Taking a deep breath to maintain her composure, she followed Mason to the main dining room. There, she found the remnants of the meal scattered across the table, empty dishes and wine bottles left carelessly, as if in haste. Her mother, Samantha, sat wearing a Chanel tweed jacket and a superficial smile. Daniel appeared uneasy in his chair, and Melody, ever the provocateur, smirked as she tapped on her smartphone. Oh, Chloe, you finally arrived, Samantha said, feigning surprise. We've already finished eating. Chloe's heart sank a little at the scene, but also hardened with resolve. This night was not just about a missed dinner. It was a stark revelation of the lengths her family would go to marginalize her. Yet, here she was, ready to face whatever came next, standing firm in her values and the life she chose with Ethan. Chloe's tone was frosty as she addressed her mother. "We didn't expect to be late." The invitation said 8 o'clock. "That's impossible," Melody countered quickly, her voice sharp. "It was at 7. I made sure of it." Chloe pulled out her smartphone and showed them a message from Samantha which clearly stated, "Please come." Ignoring the proof, Samantha quickly changed the subject. "About the bill. We had to order because you were late, even though this was supposed to celebrate your baby shower. So, you expect me to pay?" Chloe cut her off, her voice steady. "Exactly." Melody chimed in. "Since you were late." Chloe glanced at the bill on the table. 4-course dinners, 2 bottles of expensive wine, additional desserts. The total was over $5,000. As they debated, calm footsteps approached from the restaurant entrance. "Sorry to keep you waiting," came Ethan's composed voice. Dressed in his navy suit, he walked toward the table with an authoritative air. "Oh, Ethan." Samantha's tone suddenly turned sweet. "Glad you could join us." Following Ethan was Chef Anthony, the restaurant's owner, whose appearance made Samantha's smile freeze. "Mrs. Williams," Anthony began solemnly, "thank you for visiting the flagship restaurant of the Smith Hospitality Group today." Smith Hospitality Group. Melody's voice wavered. "Yes," Ethan replied smoothly. "It's my company. I manage 5 upscale restaurants in Milwaukee, including Lissendor." The faces of Chloe's family members blanched as they realized that the man they had underestimated, the president of a small real estate firm, was actually the owner of a luxury restaurant group. Ethan continued, "All records of today's reservation and surveillance footage are maintained as evidence of intentional time tampering and fraudulent billing." Samantha's hands trembled as she clutched her handbag. Daniel's face turned ashen, and Melody nearly dropped her phone. "This is just a misunderstanding," Daniel began, his voice desperate. "It's not a misunderstanding, Father," Ethan interjected calmly, yet his gaze was piercing. "This is premeditated fraud. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We are also thoroughly investigating your past actions." Chloe stood beside Ethan, watching as the facade of her family's vanity and deceit began to crumble. Outside, the Milwaukee skyline shone brilliantly against the night sky, the scene inside the private dining room starkly different. The chandelier's harsh light seemed to spotlight the faces around the table. Ethan placed a black leather briefcase on the table, the snap of its lock echoing in the tense atmosphere. Samantha's makeup-caked face twisted in distress, while Daniel mopped sweat from his brow with his aged hands. The air was heavy with the gravity of the moment, as decades of pretense and manipulation were laid bare, setting the stage for a profound confrontation. As the confrontation unfolded, Melody, still clutching her phone, seemed paralyzed by the revelations. Ethan withdrew a document from the briefcase and presented it, his voice steady. "This is Williams Real Estate's transaction record for the past 6 years." Daniel, visibly shaken, stammered, "What are you talking about?" "False transactions, fake invoicing," Ethan continued, showing another document, "and multiple illegal loans." Chloe gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief at the depth of corruption within her father's company. "Since the 2010 real estate crisis, your company has effectively been bankrupt. Yet, you've continued to sustain a lavish lifestyle, all funded through illicit means." "Be quiet," Samantha interjected sharply. "What do you know? We have a social standing to protect. To maintain that, we had to. Are you saying that committing fraud was necessary?" Chloe cut in, her voice tinged with disbelief and anger. "Is that why you've always looked down on me?" Melody, suddenly standing, sneered at Chloe. "Living a modest life, you're a disgrace to our family. You don't understand anything." Chloe remained composed. "Ethan, what about Melody?" Ethan pulled out another document. "Melody Williams, here are the findings from an investigation into your divorce and current financial situation." Melody's complexion paled. "You've been divorced for 7 months. The title of sales director at your father's company was a lie. Chloe continued relentlessly. The actual sales are zero. You take a salary and leech off your parents. Stop. Melody broke down, tears streaming down her face. I was desperate after the divorce. I had nothing, and I didn't want anyone, especially not you, who seems to live a perfect life, to know. Perfect. Chloe scoffed. I've just been living honestly. Enough is enough. Samantha's voice rose again. We have been protecting the pride of our family. Chloe, you wouldn't understand. Pride? Ethan coldly retorted, pulling out another document. Take a look at this. He handed over a document showing Samantha's personal bank account transactions. Mrs. Williams, you have been using funds embezzled from your husband's company to fund lavish trips to high-end spas and beauty clinics. Be quiet. Samantha covered her ears with her hands. A newcomer like you has no right to criticize our way of life, she snapped at Ethan. A newcomer? Ethan replied calmly, yet firmly. I have built my business honestly, without any illicit means. And the reason you've looked down on me, Chloe stood up, joining Ethan, is just jealousy. Because I achieved success on my terms, without getting caught up in pretense and vanity like you did. Daniel's voice trembled as he finally spoke, the weight of the situation bearing down on him. The room was heavy with tension, the revelations casting a stark light on the crumbling facade of a family that had valued appearances over integrity. Chloe and Ethan stood united, prepared to face whatever came next, their resolve unshaken. Chloe's voice was resonant with resolve as she addressed her family. You claim it was all in my best interest, but you've lived only for your pride. You never truly cared about me or this child. She gently caressed her belly, a protective gesture. She was adamant that her unborn child would not be sullied by their world filled with deceit. What do you intend to do now? Ethan asked in a low, calm voice, indicating the pile of damning evidence on the table. Daniel's face drained of color. No, not that, he murmured. Melody, tears streaming down her face, pleaded. Please stop. We can't fall any further. Fall. Chloe's reply was icy. You've been falling for a long time. You just refuse to acknowledge it. The chandelier above harshly lit the documents below, each page a testament to years of lies and deception. Ethan's voice was firm. You have 38 hours to decide what you will do. If we don't hear from you by then, we will take legal action. Samantha, desperate, reached out to Chloe. Surely you wouldn't turn against your own family? We're no longer family, Chloe stated flatly. As of today, it's all over. Goodbye. With that, she and Ethan left the room, leaving behind the three Williams family members who sat stunned in silence, the remnants of their facade scattered around them. Outside, the Milwaukee skyline continued to shimmer beautifully, but its glow seemed unreachable, lost to those inside the restaurant. Days later, the solemn atmosphere of the courtroom contrasted sharply with the bright sunlight streaming through its windows. Chloe, now visibly 7 months pregnant, sat quietly next to Ethan in the spectator section. The room was charged with tension as the prosecutor began. The trial for fraud, forgery, and embezzlement against Daniel Williams, Samantha Williams, and Melody Williams will now commence. The 38-hour grace period had elapsed without a word from the Williams family. In their desperation, they had attempted to destroy the evidence, only further incriminating themselves. Regarding the systemic fraudulent transactions at Williams Real Estate, the prosecutor continued, the defendants conducted fraudulent activities exceeding $12 million since 2010. Chloe observed the backs of her family members in the dock. The glamorous veneer they had maintained for so long was gone. Her father appeared weary, the weight of his actions etched into his tired frame. Her mother, usually so meticulously made up, now sat with her face bare and downturned, a stark symbol of their fall from grace. As the trial unfolded, the gravity of their choices and the impact of their deceit was laid bare, marking a definitive end to the charade they had lived for so long. Melody clutched a handkerchief in her trembling hands as one piece of damning evidence after another was presented in the courtroom. The records laid bare the fraudulent loans, doctored financial statements, and the orchestrated fraud at the restaurant, all meticulously documented and exposed. The prosecutor revealed that Samantha Williams had personally misappropriated over $3 million from company funds, causing a stir among the courtroom spectators. Samantha covered her face in shame. The charges against Melody were equally severe. She had reported fictitious sales figures, received unearned salaries, and fraudulently obtained economic benefits through false declarations during her divorce proceedings. Melody's shoulders trembled under the weight of her misdeeds. The defense's attempts to justify their actions sounded increasingly hollow. They claimed that the defendants had made unavoidable choices to maintain their social status. However, when the prosecutor objected, stating that maintaining social status does not justify committing crimes, the judge firmly sustained the objection. Ethan's testimony was pivotal. As a witness, he detailed the incident starting from the fraudulent setup at the restaurant and further unveiled the results of a long-term investigation. He described how Williams' real estate, though outwardly successful, was in reality completely insolvent. The defendants had engaged in a series of illicit activities to mask this truth. As Chloe listened to Ethan's testimony, she was resolute in her heart that this was not about revenge. It was about justice. Necessary measures to end years of lies and deception. In the afternoon session, the verdicts were delivered. Daniel Williams was sentenced to 6 years in prison, Samantha Williams to 5 years, and Melody Williams to 4 years with 5 years suspended. Additionally, they were ordered to return the ill-gotten gains and pay substantial fines. Williams' real estate was to be liquidated, the family mansion seized, and all assets frozen. After the verdict, Samantha became distraught. "Chloe, are you going to send your own mother to prison?" she cried out in a mix of anger and desperation. Melody, still reeling from her sentence, shouted, "Are you satisfied with ruining our lives?" Ethan responded calmly, emphasizing the self-inflicted nature of their downfall. "It was your own actions that ruined your lives," he stated. As Chloe left the courtroom, her stride was steady, her resolve firm. She had sought justice, not vengeance, and in doing so, ensured that her future, and that of her child, would be free from the deceit and corruption that had marked her family's legacy. Chloe didn't glance back as she descended the courthouse steps, the spring sunlight enveloping her in warmth. Ethan, always attuned to her feelings, asked gently, "Are you okay?" "Yes. Now our child can grow up in a world free of lies and deceit." The bustling streets of Milwaukee carried on as usual around them, but for Chloe, everything felt profoundly altered. This was not just an end, it was the dawn of a new beginning. 2 years later, in the serene neighborhood of Cudahy, Chloe stood by the window, watching her 3-year-old daughter, Lucia, play among the swirling autumn leaves in the garden. The scene was reminiscent of that day 4 years ago, yet everything in her life had transformed. "Mommy, look," Lucia called out, holding up a drawing of flowers. "That's lovely." Chloe smiled warmly, her heart swelling with pride. Just then Ethan emerged from the study. "Chloe, about your mother. Samantha Williams has been released from Illinois State Prison," he informed her, referring to information from a mutual friend. The once poised and commanding figure of Samantha had aged significantly, now appearing as a tired, old woman. Her post-prison life seemed bleak, with most assets seized and slim prospects for reintegrating into society. "Does it bother you?" Ethan asked softly. "No, I just feel it's karma," Chloe responded, pulling out a letter from a drawer. It was from Melody, who, after receiving a suspended sentence, now lived modestly in a small town. The letter contained an apology and a plea for reconciliation, but Chloe had no intention of responding. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, his presence reassuring. "What are you thinking about?" "That we made the right choice. We cut off relationships built on falsehoods and chose true happiness," Chloe replied. Over the past 2 years, the Smith Hospitality Group had flourished, yet they continued to embrace a simple lifestyle. Luxury and pretense were unnecessary. True happiness lay much deeper. "Any regrets?" Ethan whispered from behind her. "Not one. We chose to live honestly, and that's what led to our current happiness," Chloe mused, recalling a story a friend had shared about Daniel Williams. once dubbed the real estate king of Milwaukee. In prison, without the deference he was accustomed to, Daniel's sanity gradually unraveled. Nightly, he muttered, "I am a big shot. Don't you know who I am?" becoming a source of mockery among the other inmates. The family that had lived a lie had paid a heavy price, but Chloe had chosen a different path, one of honesty and integrity. This choice had not only reshaped her life, but had built a foundation of true contentment and hope for the future. As she gazed out at her daughter playing in the garden, Chloe felt a deep sense of satisfaction and peace, secure in the knowledge that she had steered her family toward a brighter, more authentic life.